Hello, Happy New Year, and welcome everyone to our first of our 2021 series of Sojern travel webinars. I'm looking forward to engaging with many of our partners and customers this year again in this format, especially as many of us in Europe and our industry somehow continue to work remotely and be under various levels of lockdown. So we will just wait for another minute or so to make sure we welcome you all on the call. We had many registrations and many questions already. Thanks for that. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Celine Chaussegros, and I'm the Managing Director for Europe at Sojern. Our topic today is going to be sustainable travel in 2021 in Europe. What have we learned last year? On the back of a disruptive and very disrupted 2020 for our global travel industry, what have we experienced here in Europe through the crisis? How can we leverage some of the data trends we've seen for the first wave, then the second wave, and how can destinations take advantage of a recovery now that we have a glimpse of hope with the vaccine? So in terms of format for today, we will alternate slides covering key travel insights from 2020 with some recommendations from Sojern and from our guest experts today, as well as a Q&A with them. So we have 1 hour together. I have approximately 20 minutes of content. The rest will be questions to my panelists. We have received quite a lot of questions at registration stage, so thanks a lot, everyone. I have picked 7, 8 to cover today, and I have already linked them into our discussion. So we will try to answer each question in 4 or 5 minutes each maximum. And if you have more questions live, I absolutely encourage you to post them via the platform. And if we don't get to all of them during the session, we will make sure we gather those questions and respond to each of you directly via email afterwards. So without further ado, I would like to ask my 2 VIP guests to introduce themselves. Both of them highly represent major thought leaders in the industry and key partners of Sojern. So today we have Eduardo. Eduardo, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Celine. I'm delighted to be here with you both and with my esteemed friend Alessandra, and with you, Celine, one of our associate members and obviously a great partner in the last years, pre-crisis, during crisis, and definitely post-crisis. So yeah, my name is Eduardo Santander. I manage the European Travel Commission, which is a non-profit organization based in Brussels with the aim of promoting Europe as a destination. Our members are national tourism organizations of Europe, and also companies from the private sector such as Sojern.
Thanks, Eduardo. Over to Alessandra.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Celine. Good morning, Eduardo. So good to see you in the beginning of the year from sunny, snowy Madrid. I am the current director for Region Europe at the UNWTO, which is the United Nations agency specialized in global tourism. And yes, indeed, we are, I think some of the words that are most common to us now is beyond mask is crisis. So I am delighted to be here because I think and I believe also sharing the same approach of Eduardo, that now we have to be a little bit more Greek and really get into the meaning of the word crisis and twist it to the operational part. Now it's time to act. So glad to.
Thank you, Alessandra. It's time to act indeed. So Eduardo is in the capital of Europe, Brussels, Alessandra in Madrid. I'm personally based in Paris, but I love Brussels, where I lived and started my career 2 decades ago. I was an intern from at the DZT, so the German National Tourism Board. All right, so with all that said, from the German National Tourism Board to Sojern, just a few words about us. And why we have created those travel webinar series. Perfect. Thanks for the next slide. Sojern is a digital marketing platform for travel companies. We actually collect data from data partners, and we use this data to help our advertising partners reach travelers as they are going through their planning and booking process, the so-called path to purchase. And we work with thousands of hotels, airlines, destinations, and attractions around the world, and we help them engage and convert travelers directly via online marketing strategies across all channels, from the more traditional display to video to social, but also search engine marketing and meta search. And our job is really to drive more customers to destinations, more rooms booked at hotels, more seats in planes, as well as more experiences at attractions. And we use this search and booking data to inform our customer strategies, and we optimize their campaigns via machine learning, but we're also able to inform a larger pool of stakeholders in the industry, all of you, about the travel trends that we're seeing for the various destinations. So without further ado, I have 3 slides of industry insights for you today, and I will question my guests on those trends in a few minutes. The source of the data, as I was saying, is what we call our Sojern travel insights, which we regularly share directly with our customers, and it's also available on our website. And in the era of COVID, data trends tend to evolve really, really quickly. Informing strategies with data has become even more critical. So moving on to my first insight slide, thank you. So my first data slide is a 2020 view of year-over-year changes in flight bookings to key European markets from all global locations. And we've taken a snapshot of the data and we've indexed it to the week commencing April 5th, roughly when the first wave had the most impact on European travel, as the external borders of Europe did close and many countries went under strict restrictions. So what have we seen since then is, some kind of recovery across the region throughout the summer months, as you know, with destinations like France, Spain, Italy, Greece. Here you can see them, the red line, yellow, purple, green lines, respectively. There also some kind of uptick in travel confidence, mostly from short-haul intra-Europeans and domestic travelers. However, since late August, most of the key European markets have seen a plateau in inbound flight bookings, with only slight increases and decreases in intent over the last few months. Clearly, as most of Europe entered into a second wave, that we can set in time here around mid to end of October, visible on this graph. And with uncertainty around how long restrictions are going to be remaining across the region and third lockdowns applied or soon to be implemented in our region, it's likely that traveler intent and confidence will waver for another few weeks, if not months. Some industry players comment that a certain resilience has been put in place from the summer on, and that the second wave was definitely not as hurting the business as hard as the first one. Some countries have kept travelers engaged. There was some kind of business continuity. Airlines started flying, although with limited capacity. Hotels staying open this time round, while they were closed during the first wave. People getting more organized working from home, just like ourselves. And at Sojern, we've kept most of our advertisers' campaign running, as customers really wanted to keep some kind of always-on brand presence versus previous activity being more focused around seasonal burst or promotions. And we've seen lately attempts to push Christmas holidays as well, having some kind of perspective, and some of those, however, had to be postponed or cancelled, with the ski resorts not opening as an example. So as of today, it really looks like the business is looking towards Easter, then summer, despite a third wave hitting us now, and travel intent is actually plateauing again. Our data is also telling us about the confidence in domestic travel, which has guided recovery in summer and could well be the only trend that's helping this year too, unless the situation drastically changes with the vaccine opening us the gates to long haul again. I don't know. let's ask our experts in 1 minute. But on this slide, we have decided to show you some hotel bookings versus flights on the previous slide. And here as well, the data is indexed on April 5th, and similar trends appear. If you look at the left graph, there is a rebound in confidence and stays through the summer and late summer, stopped by second wave, relaunched with some winter perspective, and pending next governmental decisions as far as 2021 is concerned. However, it's nice to see that despite the fact that European external borders are still closed, some international clientele on the right side of the slide, on the right graph, international or intra-regional from neighboring countries, is showing some positive signs compared to the first wave, and some intent to visit in 2021, with some bookings already confirmed. I definitely know some colleagues in the US who have booked their European summer family trip. And going back to the idea of domestic travel and this trend, it's true that there is a greater feeling of security, but also flexibility and certainty for the trip to happen if closer to home. And it can be booked last minute, and it may be refundable. And this is definitely something else that the data is telling us, that associated with those domestic trends, hotels have to show flexibility with their rates and cancellation policies. And we will continue to see shorter and shorter lead time in bookings. On the next slide, I want to speak about the vaccine. So the first milestone vaccine announcement came on November 9th. It was Pfizer-BioNTech when they presented their vaccine. And the news, as you know, prompted an increase in all of the travel giants' stock prices and seemingly had a positive impact on travel intent around the globe. Have a look at the orange line for Europe. The second impact by the announcement of Oxford AstraZeneca happened on November 22nd, also visible on the graph. And since then, we have had Moderna as well. So our data clearly shows here that following the huge drop in European travel since the week of October 18th, actually that's second lockdowns around, the news of the vaccine have boosted traveler enthusiasm. And this has resulted in a slight uptick in travel searches, probably for far out dates, but still. And although the graph below shows weekly flight searches only, the same trend is being recorded with hotels. And this positive impact is extended in 2021, now that the populations are actually starting to be vaccinated, although not all at the same pace. So it's at least giving some kind of perspective for the second part of 2021. Basically, the entire industry is trying to assess right now whether there will be a summer season, or if the season will have to be extended, or if it will be shuffled around by uncertainty. And you know, the flight trends we saw in a minute ago give us some hints into summer potentially being extended into the later season, October, November. What seems to appear is some kind of optimism, and there will be a surge linked to summer in Europe. But when, how, and who is going to be benefiting from this? You know, the question is, how is the industry and the various countries preparing for this? What will be needed to enter a certain country? Will it be a PCR test? Will it be a vaccine, a health passport? It seems to me that a lot of coordination will be needed. And I don't know if you saw in the press yesterday, I think we're going to be posting the article. There was a chief scientist at the World Health Organization commenting that global herd immunity will not be reached in 2021, despite widespread vaccination campaigns. And I also heard this morning that Greece is one of the countries pushing for the vaccination passport in view of protecting their summer season. So all of this is really, really interesting. And in the perspective of then looking forward to 2021, I think it's a really good time for me here to pause talking. And I want to hand it over to my panelists on that topic, maybe starting with you, Eduardo. So after seeing the insights I just shared, what are your thoughts on the current status of European travel? Have you seen similar trends? And what are your expectations for the coming months and our summer? Back to my point on, you know, everyone being the same fog right now, wondering when, how, and where travel will bounce back.
Thank you, Celine, for the wonderful and comprehensive insights. Obviously, they coincide with all our forecast, and obviously all the studies and research that we're doing with you, but also on our own and together with UNWTO. I'm sure Alessandra will report also about their their prospects for the months to come. Quick answer to your question is that we don't really know. Let's face that we cannot make predictions. We are beyond any kind of worst case scenarios that we did back in 2020. And it will ultimately depend on every and each of us individually speaking. Travel is safe. It's been empirically proved by IATA most recently, publishing three different studies. That, taking a plane, traveling, using an airport, even taking a taxi, and so it's not the problem. The problem is individual behavior. So I would focus more in what we can do rather than what we can predict, but we cannot predict everything, especially because this is a multifactorial equation. So I would like at this very point to quote Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, the author of Le Petit Prince, the Little Prince. In other of his essays in Citadel, or Wisdom of Sons, it's translated into English. It says your role is not to predict the future, but to shape it. And this shaping is where we are now. And I refer to Alessandra's first words saying that it's time for action now. What we can do is definitely prepare from when we can go back to a certain degree of normality. And that certain degree of normality has nothing to do with the normality that we had back in 2019. This is something that we have to take as a fact already. I think the naive hope that we will go to an exponential growth in travel that knew no end, and all the problems aside that we were ignoring, and that they will come back most probably soon, cannot provide us the solution for this unprecedented crisis. And the tourism is something very predictable when all these uncertainties are gone. People know that when they're going to a beach resort, there's going to be sun, there's going to be fun, there's going to be safety. So how can we now, meanwhile, provide those certainties, to be part of the seamless experience in the future? And this is something that I think should be the focus in the months to come. Is that as all the health experts are addressing, COVID is here to stay for a while. We are just trying to manage it, but it's not probably disappearing forever. Hopefully, it may be, that it disappears or not, but we don't know. And since we don't know, we have to try to live and survive with it. And survive in the tourism ecosystem is a very complex thing, because it goes from transportation to accommodation to individual decisions. And I say here, I would like to rewind my first statement and say we need to go to the individual level, because this is what it matters. People, let's say, put themselves in risk, or not when they traveling, but when they arrive to their destinations and start doing maybe certain types of behavior that maybe they will not do at home. And this is where there has to be an exercise of educating demand and supply, and how do we have to behave also in the months to come if we want to have a rather speedy recovery and not a very slow one, which obviously by default will be probably too late for many, or too slow for many entrepreneurs to recover. So there's hope. We will definitely travel again. I agree with you that we will not see a major moves also in the graphics and in the prospects before the summer. Let's admit it. The winter season is over, and probably the Easter season is also lost. And we have to make this assumption that we have to work for a very safe summer and a very safe winter for 2022. And then we have practically 6 months to act properly and to act responsibly. And this is what I mean, that we have to learn from the mistake, and we couldn't know. So I don't blame anybody. I don't blame authorities. I don't blame anything. I blame each of every of us, for thinking that we could maybe save many businesses while acting very quick and in a very uncoordinated maybe way. So to close this first intervention, I will say that we have to go back to the very basics from March 2019, that we still have to coordinate ourselves, apply to also the vaccination strategies, we have to harmonize still protocols, when it comes to travel. And definitely, I would like to open the discussion of the non-discrimination that is being in the media recently.
Yeah.
If people with access to a vaccine or having got the shot already should be able to travel versus those that haven't yet, and that they should be discriminated. This is a very, very complicated scenario. I don't personally believe on that, because I repeat, travel is scientifically proved as a safe activity. So it's not the action of traveling that put people in jeopardy, but it's the individual behavior in destinations, or origin or destination, what it makes the whole thing worse.
Love this answer, Eduardo. Thank you so much. Key message here: travel is safe. Focus on what we can do and control, and it's up to us in the industry to shape the future. And it's not only an individual responsibility, but also collective eventually. Thanks a lot for that. Alessandra, would you have any additional thoughts on this vaccine question?
More than thoughts, as I was saying, we at UNWTO have been working from the very beginning of the pandemic at 2 levels. We are global soft legislators, so our job is basically not only to give an overview of the sector and keep it monitored through the tight collaboration with our sister agencies and the global private sector and the major institutions like the European institutions, but also to immediately think about, okay, the crisis is here now, what's going to happen next? Because preparedness is as important, if not more important, than the crisis management itself. And this is something that we've been addressing from the very beginning by immediately looking at what possible solutions, when, if, and if, when, how. And so from March 2020, we were immediately thinking, all right, because as you remember, I think one of the most disruptive effects of this pandemic is that it was gradual. Really, it completely changed the face of tourism, in the sense that tourism is all about programming in the medium to long term. And in reality, we all turned into last minuters. So in last seconders at the end of the day, because we were making plans for, okay, now it's here. Well, in the beginning, we were saying, okay, it's another SARS is going to stay in Asia. Then when we woke up to the fact that it was in Europe, we were all shocked. Then we realized that it was global, so the shock augmented. But we all thought and hoped, obviously, that after the stop of the spring, summer, everything would get better, and then people started talking about second wave. So then when we all wanted to get out because of the confinement, then people started addressing tourism as one of the causes of the spread. So here we go, another problem, which is, if yesterday we were struggling with the fact that tourism was the cause of many disruptions, over tourism, lack of sustainability policies, impacts on the environment, and the word too much was all over the place. Now it comes that, okay, tourism is actually the thing that is causing the fact that this pandemic is not ending. So once again, we were opening, closing, and then thinking that maybe things will get better. And then here comes the winter season, where it was a definite shot. So whatever we thought and planned, it was sort of, disrupted once again. In the meantime, we had the vaccines. But then we also have everyone telling us, starting from the WHO, our sister agency, that tells us, okay, the vaccines are not going to solve the issue forever, because we're still testing the vaccines, and because we all know, sensible people at least, remember that vaccines is not something that you take and it's an immediate cure. A cure could be, but you need time to evaluate its impacts. In the meantime, the travel, and I'm talking travel before, and I'm saying the travel and tourism industry, international mobility, needs to restart. There's no question about that. And so we have all got together. Especially, Eduardo has initiated something which I found incredibly useful, which was the informal task force on COVID, where he said, okay, let's get everybody together, specifically on the European side, which has the advantage of having the Schengen area, so sort of a pilot, a global area where member states also have, you know, a little bit of an advantage, and let's start exchanging. Now, we all came, most of us, to one important understanding that we needed to find a solution, hopefully and mostly digital, in which we were addressing the 3 T's, which is test, trace, and treat, also with a more harmonized and coordinated approach, which meant no more quarantines, because the quarantines unilaterally taken were not helping any of the programming, any of the resumption, any of the restart that anybody could have in mind for both the transport sector, the hospitality sector. So it was a little bit, you know, it was clear to everyone the quarantines were to be avoided. Then testing, okay, we are all testing, we all do our PCRs, but at the moment we're still in a situation where the PCR that I do in Portugal when I travel to Spain is not legally recognizable because they don't have the tools to assess that that is actually a valid test. So everything is relying on our own conscience, which is good, which is great because we're all doing great stuff. Everyone's wearing a mask, everyone's complying, everyone's concerned, which is great. Nevertheless, we need this step further. And this is where I think it's important to remark that our voices really became one when we all started advocating for the same thing, especially towards institutions like the European Commission and the European Union in general, that we needed a coordinated approach coming probably from the most, you know, expected source, which is the European institutions. Yeah. Now we are in a much better space, we believe, because even the WHO is recognizing the importance of e-certificates of vaccination, which means that the digital tool will help us or can help us revive or restart a more organic process that goes from the booking to the actual travel, to the actual management of the experience, to the actual safe return in country of origin. So all of this is progressing, and we are once again on the forefront, and never before there has been such a united forefront. And we're going to continue holding hands, but the work is just, you know, I don't want to say that it's just beginning, because we began from the first moment, but we can never think that we've achieved enough. And we're always, every step that we make, every meeting that we have over each and every one of us, of our task forces, the private sector, us at the more public sector level, the European level, at the African level, at the Asian level, we really need to continue and come together with practical, pragmatic solutions to restart as soon as possible. Otherwise, Celine, honestly, we wouldn't be looking at bookings anymore. We will be looking at a mortality rate, which is already forecasted as huge. Our latest forecasts, and by the way, thank you, Sojern, for being part of the family of UNWTO data network, allowing us to do our amazing dashboards. What is going to happen is that, you know, all the SMEs, especially in the European territory, are going to disappear. Our forecasts have already stated that we are end of year 2020 minus over 70%. We have all said that we are back to the data of 1990 with a completely different range of offer. We need to restart. Yeah. Airlines need to be able to operate. Planes need to operate. Trains, obviously, and cars and everything else, but planes above all. Intercontinental needs to be part of the discussion ASAP. Tourism was a global industry, has to return being a global industry. We have to learn lessons, yes, but we cannot wait for much longer. That is my only concern.
Alessandra, thank you. This is incredible insights. I'm sure a lot of our attendees are actually part of those SMEs in our industry that you're referencing, and I like this approach, this institutional view that you're giving in our session today versus a bit more of a commercial dashboard that I'm presenting. So terrific insight. Thanks so much. I hope to believe that travel is resilient. I think this is something that we believe strongly at Sojern, and I wanted to continue with this. You know, consumers are still eager to hit the road, even if new precautions will be required. And you know, I think we all have to be excited for the future of travel. The three of us definitely sound like we are. And you know, we've, like many of you on the call, we've lived through the recovery cycle of various crises. You know, when we go back 20 years ago, 9/11, grounding travel, and then the economic crisis in 2008. And, you know, definitely this global pandemic, the impact is much deeper and far-reaching. But we've learned that the travel industry is resilient, and it will come back, and it will come back strongly. And as you were saying, our job is to help the industry to be prepared collectively, one voice for this recovery. But maybe to Eduardo's point, it's time to change the way we travel and reshape things. And you know, we're going to be sharing a few tips for rebound in 2021. But I would like to test the resilience of our audience by introducing a poll to the audience to all of you attendees. So the question is, do you have a trip booked for 2021? We are going to give you 10 seconds. Eduardo, Alessandra, a trip booked in 2021 already?
I have a trip booked already, yeah.
Perfect. And you, Alessandra?
Yes, of course, but I don't count because I travel for work and I really never stopped traveling. So I cannot say that, you know, of course, we never stopped.
You never stopped. You never stopped. That's great, Alessandra. So the majority, it looks like 53% of you guys have not yet booked a trip for 2021. 17% have booked a trip to 2021. So that's you know, that's interesting. You know, maybe this is illustrating that people, you know, want to think of it and see, and you know, shorter lead times is definitely another trend that we're going to be seeing in 2021. Great. So moving on to my next slide. Are we back onto the slides? Perfect. I want to segue into how important it is for destinations to rethink how they assess success in 2021. So it will be posted as well in the platform. I'm referring to an article we recently published with our friends at FocusWire. And in this article, we cover how 2020 has forced brands and destinations to pivot their strategies and offerings in new ways to accommodate traveler needs. And traveler confidence, the budgets, the policies, the procedures, they all have evolved. And these changes have created a new normal for travelers, and it has created a new normal as a consequence also for travel marketers. And for tourism boards, it means finding new ways to deliver results with limited budgets. And the biggest threat to destination marketing success in 2021 is to operate with outdated metrics, as the world is nowhere near where it was in 2019, and the data really evolves every day. What we've seen in the past is that most tourism boards allocate digital spend to direct response or campaigns that are inspiring potential travelers to take immediate action. But you know, things are changing. You know, you might not want to look as before at, you know, how many visits you had on your website, what was your click-through rate, how many impressions you delivered for your campaign. As overall budgets continue to decrease and travelers are hesitant to book, the destinations will likely need to consider more digital branding campaigns. And digital branding campaigns are less expensive, they're more flexible, they're easier to track, but they're also tracked on different KPIs and metrics. You're looking at the customer lifetime value of your consumer or prospect, how many incremental searches, this customer is doing on various websites, etc. And back to what Eduardo was mentioning a minute ago, maybe it's about creating more sustainable business models as well for the industry. So where is the opportunity to change things? And in assessing success, I think destinations will also need to be able to measure the impact of the travelers on other travel partners within their own destination, like hotels and attractions. And this is what we will cover in a minute around the idea of building cooperation partnerships. But I have so many more questions for you guys, so I'm gonna hand the mic back to my panelists. Eduardo, I just wanted to ask you, I think for the first time in 2020, we've seen a lot of very, very small or smaller destinations come forward and put budget to advertise for the first time as a result of the pandemic. Do you think this will be a long-lasting impact? Or do you think that the focus at some point will shift back to the large destinations?
No, I don't believe that, and I think that would be a tremendous failure, honestly said. I think, and Alessandra mentioned the focus. It's also on the small and medium-sized enterprises. 85% of European tourism entrepreneurship is made of them. So, but important is how do you penetrate in a way that the information and the data that companies as a Sojern is providing help them in a way. And I insist here, and together, with UNWTO and many other partners in insistence of further upskilling and the change of paradigm of how the value change should be embedded in new strategies. Because sustainability comes from sustaining, and sustaining it's part of something very physically, from government putting money for infrastructure, helping hotels to change their energy policies, or like providing grants for putting solar panels and things like that. This for me very black and white. It's pretty easy. For me, the important part is how do you educate and how do you upskill the real entrepreneurs? How do you not only give them the tool, but you learn, and you give them at least a manual, or even better, you give them a training, or even you support them with a trainer or with a coach, to bring them through the process. This is, I think, one of the biggest challenges in this process of regeneration, as we call it, of transformation of the European tourism ecosystem, which is, an educational process, and at all layers, and that it will affect equally small, medium, and big enterprises. Obviously, big enterprises will have more access, to information and trainings and coaches, but how do you also, as states are now giving the mandate of of managed recovery funds from the European Union, how do we really reach the needed one? And this is where it comes to the real question at glance. Europe has to take a very, very strict decision here. Is, do we want to be in the future the first or the best? These two different things, and they don't always match together. First, for me, is that what we have been done for 60 years is metrics as like successful metrics, or to measure success with metrics such as arrivals, number of beds, expenditure, very numeric. For me now, the new gold in data is the qualitative data. Is intention to travel, is feelings when you travel, is how how resilience is the feeling that a destination leaves on an individual will last, so that there will be some kind of repetition of a destination in the next booking cycle. And this is a very complex thing, because it requires mega data banks. It requires company like yours partnering with many different data sources, and also it requires the most important thing, which is interpretation. How do you get all this data out of it and say, okay, this is what it's really saying, that this is what you have to do. And again, in every single chain, even if it's made of hard steel, there is always, if a link of that chain is not working, the chain is no longer strong. And this is where we need to understand that this crisis is not just a matter of one country or two or three or one continent or not. So you have to strengthen or put a lot of efforts in supporting globally the whole because the moment we have a weak link, we can again restart a new wave if we want, with a new strain, as we were saying, if we lower the guard in terms of safety protocols. I think that the same way that security protocols are in our lives, and we take for granted that we cannot travel with liquids, or with that we have to remove our shoes or go through a security checkpoint, we will have to learn, that some of the safety measures will stay here forever, and this is nothing wrong. Probably will make our experience even more pleasant, and in the future, we need to somehow accept some uncomfortable truths that if we don't want to change, nothing will happen, and we will create more social problems, social upheaval, and a lot of frustration and demotivation. Which, by the way, it's, I think, one of the biggest problems now is that lack of information in the whole value chain, because you say, and Alessandra and I work very hard within these different networks. The complexity of tourism goes beyond just a tour operator or a OTA or a thing. It goes that like the value chain is interconnected to many other sectors that are also very dependent on or interdependent on tourism. Needless to mention maybe today the incredible dependence on mobility. I mean, all mobility policies in the future will define what tourism will be, and that's what we need, this dialogue with them. Aviation is now at stake. I mean, we'll see probably in the next weeks and months huge changes in aviation and mobility policies. And they are not going to be very positive. You're going to be consolidation of airlines, many airlines disappearing, and lack of capacity maybe, or reshuffle of capacity globally and regionally. And we'll have to educate people also to travel differently, because maybe there will not be that kind of availability that we had in the past. Therefore, the European Union has called this year for a year of rail, like the revitalization of rail travel. With Europe has the best, the fastest, and the safest rail network in the world. But obviously none of the train as maybe previous generations used to do. Now we have learned to work from home, and if you can work from your living room, as I'm doing right now, you are definitely able to work from a train, or for a train station, or from an airport too, or from a plane probably in the future. So what I'm trying to say here, that this is a very societal chain, and unless we embrace it, it's going to be very Darwinistic response. Those, meaning here entrepreneurs who will be able to adapt. And again, being able doesn't mean motivation to adapt or not, it's also supporting them. And this is where policy is very, very, very important here. And the work of agencies as the UNWTO is essential here to push governments into that, towards that direction. That we need support, and support doesn't make a check with money to do things. Support is a lot of knowledge, it's a lot of data again, and it's a lot of interpretation of that. And it doesn't have to be a very long path. I see that we have one of the biggest targets, objectives of the European Union for the next 10 years is the digitalization of practically all industrial sectors. And we see that this will affect tourism massively. It has done already in previous decades, but we're still in nappies, if you want, in a baby stage when it comes to the digitalization of the sector. So how can we really take advantage of that, and also completely connected to the green economy, which, by the way, that was happening before COVID too. So we been talking, and media mentioned COVID as an accelerator of many processes. So let's use the positive side of COVID too, which is the power of transformation, or if you want, the glasses that let us see now that elephant in the room that we had all the time there, and everybody was looking to another direction just to avoid that. Because let's admit it, tourism before COVID was such a industry working so smoothly. You know, it was revenue margin driven, profit driven, and it was, you know, we thought there was not an end. And you know, this is just preposterous. You know, like it's not nothing lasts forever in an exponential growth. Everything ends up falling. The good thing is that the falls is not because of us, it's because of an external factor. So we have now the capacity to adapt. But again, I insist in the issue of coordination and harmonization, the same way that if you go to an airport in Africa, in Oceania, in Latin America, or in Europe, you will find very similar protocols for security. Yeah. In the future, we'll have to have very similar protocols, you know, for safety, but also to travel, and you know, also the way we carry data and interpreted data in the future to help the whole value chain.
Thanks, Eduardo. A lot in this response, fabulous. I appreciate you touch base on some of the points here around, you know, qualitative metrics, feelings, experiences, sustainability, of course, one voice, creating the right partnerships at a global level, and you know, seeing a bit of hope in the situation with somehow COVID being an accelerator of, you know, giving us the power of transformation to bounce back. That's great. I think, you know, I want to continue on the talk track here by saying that if you talked as well about value of our chain of values. I think there's something that has not changed this year and during the crisis is the power of dreams attached to travel, and how much inspiration was given by the industry to potential travelers while they were under lockdown at you know, at home. And you know, definitely when I see this image, I just die to be back to New York City. And I think, you know, dream was a key component of all the messages that we've seen this year. So on the next slide, I have a few examples of how destinations have been super creative, I find, in order to keep inspiring future visits and also showing their support of flattening the curve, you know, telling very compelling stories about, you know, the idea of dream, but stay safe and visit later, right? And I quite like, you know, the Parthenon here. This is Athens campaign telling us have been there for 2,500 years, and I can wait a bit longer. Or Madrid showing its resilience in a video campaign, or Puerto Rico here allowing virtual experiences and tours as another example. So, you know, that's the type of messaging we've been seeing this year. And maybe I'd like to ask Alessandra on something that came from the audience, actually. It's around the idea of destinations have communicated a lot about safety this year. Shall destinations continue to communicate on how safe it is to travel, or is it time to change the conversation? You know, in a minute or two, Alessandra, what do you think about that?
Which minute or two? The one that Eduardo used as well, or
yeah, looks like time in Brussels is amplified.
Well, which means I will also take my time. So thank you, first of all, for the question from the audience. We've always said that safety is now part of the structured offer message, and people are going to look for that. I'm going to tap back into what Eduardo said in the beginning of his latest answer. When we're talking about changing metrics, trust is a fundamental value. And tourism is the industry, you called it the industry of dreams. I call it the industry of beautiful memories. And it's based on trust. But it's an interesting trust because it's the trust of the unknown. Tourism is essentially about discovering new things, about being surprised, about, you know, going to destinations never seen before. Of course, it's also about returning to destinations that we already know. But the component of, you know, discovering and getting next or near something which is not usual is something which at the moment is really impossible to communicate, because in reality, because of the safety measures and because of the situation, everyone's telling us to be more cautious. Do not hug, do not stay more than 6 people on a table, even if you're part of the same, gang. Do not, anything. We have a lot of denials, a lot of no's, a lot of things we cannot do, which are, if you look carefully into it, the absolute opposite of the tourism behavior. As Edo was saying before, it is a societal transformation, which I don't think is going to be permanent, because I think some needs are basic and you not take them away from people, and people are smart enough to know that this is somehow has to be temporary. Otherwise, if you think you cannot hug your friends anymore, I'm sure you're going to go crazy somehow. Nevertheless, it's bringing in an extra element. So I do believe safety in the years to come has to continue being part of the communication.
Yeah.
Because we've seen other things happening before. Natural events, volcano eruptions, terrorist attacks. Every time they happen, there was a little bit of disrupt. And we can manage it because they were focused, they were regionalized, they were localized. Now, the thing why we couldn't manage, because it wasn't localized, it was everywhere. So if I'm choosing my next destination, most likely I would look into that component as much as, and I would like to now drop in a point of reflection also for the audience. Last year especially, we were all concerned about sustainability and the impact that tourism was having on the rest of the environment and the earth. So we at UNWTO would really like to see this sustainability element being really taken seriously. And therefore, I would imagine that as much as it started to be an interesting point of choice from demand, that safety and sustainability are indeed a very strong point when choosing a destination, and will continue being part of a marketing campaign.
Thanks, Alessandra. Very inspiring as well. Love the, again, looks like we're touching back again on sustainability, which is going to be critical for 2021. Thanks a lot for your response there. Moving on, I just want to, I'm very conscious of time. Your insights are fabulous. So I want to make sure I expose you to more questions that are coming from our audience. I think I'm going to fly through the rest of my content. This one is really, talking about how much, it's actually a study from McKinsey. I recommend you check the article as well. It has revealed that during COVID, the digital adoption rates that have been, experienced there have covered decades in days. And your customers are online all of the time. And 40% of them are more and more involved on social media, even people that were not involved on social media before. So exciting engagement place, for inspiration, dream, communicating safety, back to your point, Alessandra. And on the next slide, you'll see the slides when we share them with the audience, but interesting trends as well on how much mobile adoption continues, not only for searches, but also for bookings. Actually in 2020 across all segments. The last point I want to talk about, and then I want to ask more questions if we can, is around this idea of we're all in this together. It's a global issue. Let's be one voice and let's try to create partnerships locally around the idea that together we're stronger. And we've seen a lot of that happening this year. Stretch budgets around and the idea of trying to drive combined demand to one destination. So we've been doing that at Sojern and supporting a few customers to do that. The idea is for a DMO to partner with local attractions and hotels and highlight reasons to visit and cooperate on one single marketing strategy. And this is how it's looking like. Usually you have the DMO who creates the co-op either with funds that they have or without, even without. They can just be responsible of coordination, because they know all the business that participate. And then with, the advertising is done on behalf of the individual co-op participant. The attraction of the hotels, we help them get travelers book directly with them, and the DMO runs or not at the same time their own campaign raising awareness. And the beauty here is that because most of the campaigns or ads are running at the same time, in the co-op, the DMO can see the overall economic impact of the activities on the individual businesses and in totality on the destination. And really, it's tough, right, for a DMO to be able to draw such a direct connection between what you activate on your side and the impact into your local businesses. So in a nutshell, this idea of pooling funds to get a greater impact collectively, I think we've seen that as being really powerful, and I think this is going to be a strong element of a 2021 all in this together recovery strategy. So maybe my VIP guests, is it something that you've seen implemented? Why do you think that it's important for travel brands and destinations to actually collaborate across the industry? And whoever wants to take this first.
I can take that, because it's something that we've been doing since 2012. We moved from a strategy of membership to a strategy of partnership, which is again a coalition of the willing and the able. As you say, that that tourism budgets or marketing budgets are becoming less and more difficult to gather and so on. This is a fact even pre-COVID times. So you'll see that this has been a trend for many years. Fact is, the cooperative marketing activities, joint promotion activities, and PPEs and all these things, it's a reality already. It's something also that it's happening not only in Europe, but also in America. Like Visit US or Brand USA is doing that also with their own state there. We are doing here at ETC level with our national tourism organizations, our members, which also partner with regions and other DMOs, and even with some attractions and big companies. We've done with Sojern also some of these programs, and it's already a reality. Now, how can we actually streamline all this as a normal business? This is the question. I think there is a trend still to go to old patterns, like old models of promotion and so on. I think, and that the digitalization should never be the target, but it should be also always the mean to an objective. I don't believe in virtual tourism personally. I think, as Alessandra was saying, this is about emotions, it's about tangible stuff, it's flavors, it smells. So far, we cannot do that digitally. And as long as we keep the digitalization as a tool to our targets, I think we can. So the multimodal, multi-device, everybody obviously it's on the go right now. So things have to go more accessible. And here we work together with the industry partners, in particular technology providers, to the so-called for the so-called seamless initiative or seamless experience of travel. UNWTO and ourselves work, with many other companies trying to facilitate the process of booking, because in the end, how difficult can be still to book a vacation if you do it on your own. Even as a travel expert, I can confess that it takes me hours sometimes, to take decisions there, and not only take decisions, but to find exactly what I want to find. So and again, we come back to the same discussion we had before. I think it's the data that it's going to give us, and also how do you link databases in a way that amplify the desires of the demand. We always defend the principle that we have to develop what is demanded and not the opposite way around. We cannot create something and then create the demand. You have to listen first and see, okay, what is the appetite? What is the flavors and colors that people like? And then you provide a product, not the opposite way around. We've been doing that in Europe like this, and we've been doing that wrong for many years, to say, okay, visit London, Paris, Rome, by all respect, beautiful cities. But why we only focus on those kind of big urban centers where, we know that Europe is made of so many other medium and small destinations. And that brings me to one of the things that this pandemic is gonna help us with is, to maybe spread the flows, to lesser known destinations, to revitalize rural areas, and digitalization from an infrastructural point of view, but also again from a usage point of view is going to be key to arrive to places that people were not able to arrive in the past.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely cooperation, partnership is the word of the future for tourism, and whoever is a denial of this, I think will never succeed.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Eduardo. Back to this idea that this year in 2020, that was the opportunity for smaller destinations to be visible and to promote themselves, and also domestic travel actually enabling a lot of people to just visit their home countries again and rediscover their own playground. I'm very conscious of time. I would love to be speaking with both of you for hours. I think we're going to be wrapping up. I just have one slide, and we've had so many questions coming in. Thanks a lot to our audience. I will be working with my experts to make sure that those get answered. But just a quick wrap up on the learnings from this year. Travelers never stop dreaming. Keep up the good job of inspiring them. They will adapt to new ways of traveling until the vaccine, but they will continue, and travel is safe. The travel sentiment might change though, right? From over-tourism to post-COVID being more sustainable, more local, more domestic, as we were saying, everyone rediscovering their own playground, short hauls, perceived as safer. So the marketing messages will have to be different, as well as the channels on where to find your customer base. Remember online adoption rates that we saw in 2020. It's crucial to use data and travel insights to inform your strategies, and do not hesitate to leverage the partnerships that you can locally to activate common tactics and drive common demands. And finally, success will surely look different in 2021. Definitely not like it was in 2019, and that's a good thing. As Eduardo and Alessandra were saying, maybe COVID has been an accelerator and a lens for us, the need of transformation. So be willing to adapt your goals, adapt your KPIs, and look for new travelers' behaviors, and be nimble, as this is probably going to be the world we live in for another while. Hopefully not too long. So with this glimpse of hope, I think we're going to be wrapping up. It was my pleasure and honor to have such prestigious guest speakers with me today. Thanks a lot for the very, very, very valuable insights, Alessandra, Eduardo. Thanks for your precious time and contribution to our discussion. Thanks for the great partnership with Sojern over the years, and thanks everyone in our audience for their attention and interest in this topic. We got so much interaction, so many attendees. I'm really looking forward to following up, sending the recording. It will be shared widely. Again, we will be answering all the questions that were asked. And I just want to wish everyone to stay well, to stay safe. And again, best of luck in 2021, best of happiness, success in the business, and lots of travels safely and sustainably, of course. So with that, we're going to say goodbye, and until next time, feel free to reach out. You have my email address here. We're going to be delighted to hear from you. Thank you so much, Alessandra and Eduardo, again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Celine. Thank you for the great moderation. Thank you. Thank you, Alessandra.
My pleasure. Bye, everyone.